does space actually fall under the Air Force? And if it does, why are they creating a whole new branch? And you should watch it. It's actually pretty funny. Hey launchers, welcome back to the channel and another episode here at the Launchpad where we talk about everything space related, and hopefully some of this stuff is interesting to you. If you're new here, thank you so much for stumbling upon this channel. If you like what you see, it'd be great if you guys hit that subscribe button and that bell notification so you don't miss out on any future content. All right, so let's go ahead and dive into today's subject, and we're gonna talk about something that I've actually been wanting to talk about for a while. Netflix's new web series called Space Force. So I'm actually gonna give you my own personal opinions on that particular show. I just finished watching all 10 episodes. Talk a little bit about what I thought about the show, because I know there's been quite a few different opinions. If you haven't watched Space Force, I'm gonna try my best not to have any type of spoilers here. I know those of you who really wanna watch it. I'm a big fan of saying, don't spoil it! Or even if you have spoilers, I just stay away from them, because I think it's just best that everybody go and watch that particular series, movies, presentation, whatever you want to call it, on your own and make your own decisions. Okay, so Space Force actually premiered back on Netflix, I guess at the end of May of this year, and it actually stars Steve Carell, who you know I'm a big, huge fan of. I've actually watched The Office over and over and over again. I think at least 30 or 40 times. I've literally watched that show over. I love that show. And I've actually seen him in quite a few movies. And I think he's a great and talented actor. He's great in comedy, and he's actually kind of dived into a couple of different dramas. This particular series, he actually is a co-writer with, I believe, Greg Daniels. Him as a character, he's actually a general who just becomes a 4-star general. And in one of the meetings in the beginning of the series, he actually sits down and they tell him that they're actually starting a new branch of the military called Space Force. And they actually have a little bit of a comedy skit, I guess you could say, a joke about the fact that, does space actually fall under the Air Force? And if it does, why are they creating a whole new branch? And you should watch it. It's actually pretty funny. And throughout the 10 episodes, it's pretty much the, I guess you could say, antics and adventures of him trying to run this new space agency department. And it's actually the whole idea of him being so rigid as a military person, trying to work with some of his co-workers and trying to get this program off the ground. And of course, throughout that particular storyline, he actually has his daughter that he's trying to raise and the relationship between him and her. I would say overall, the acting's really good. It's just the writing, not so much. I feel like Space Force overall kind of falls flat, and a lot of it has to do with writing. It's so important that the writing is really good, and not to say that there is anything wrong with the jokes that were being told. I just feel like they just weren't hitting. And I don't think it was the actors. I think the actors were amazing. Jane Lynch, and those of you who are actually Glee fans know her from that particular series amongst other projects, actually has a couple of smaller parts within this. And I think she actually steals the scene all the time. I love Jane Lynch. She's amazing, hilarious. And I think they should have used her more. She has these one-line zingers. She just hits them all around. And I think even John Malkovich, who actually plays, I believe, the close scientist to Steve Carell's character, actually does have a lot of interesting lines to say as well. And I think he's really, really funny. I mean, John Malkovich has that kind of quirky mystique to him that kind of lends well to the kind of character that he plays on this particular series. I think he would have made a pretty good antagonist, or even not really an antagonist, but somebody who actually can kind of play off of Steve Carell's character a lot. Because Steve Carell's character is very rigid, like I said. He's kind of one of those people that he puts so much responsibility on himself that he's not very unmoving. He's one of those like stereotypical military guys. He's you know, do what he says, do what I command. I'm now promoted, and I want this to go well, and all this stuff. And that kind of brings itself to that kind of comedy. I feel like the show is self-aware of its comedy and thinks its comedy is intelligent enough to be funny. And while I was watching it, I just wasn't laughing. Certain parts that were making me chuckle, there were certain parts that I kind of laughed a little bit that I thought was funny, but overall, it just seems like a very series of riffs that just didn't really go anywhere. And I think the show's pacing didn't help either. I feel like the pacing wasn't even in certain parts. And this whole idea of trying to get this, I guess, department going, it actually was very fast-paced, or a little too fast-paced in certain instances where things were just happening and then you're like, what just happened? And then they moved on to another scene or on to another part of the storyline in order to progress it, which I didn't think was a good idea. in my opinion. I really didn't see a lot of strong relationships between the characters. I couldn't really understand the actual through line between those, because John Malkovich's character and his character are supposed to butt heads often, and it's supposed to be comedy, but I didn't really see much of that. And I don't, like I said, I don't believe it is actually the acting. It's just, I think the writing was poor enough that it didn't make that clear. There's often times where I really wasn't quite sure what the relationship was between some of these characters. I knew what the general relationship was, but I didn't know exactly where it was going and how it was going to organically grow as you would normally see in a series, right? Another person that was on there that I love is Lisa Kudrow, who actually plays Steve Carell's character's wife. And they didn't really use her as much. Her character was kind of pushed on the back burner a little bit, which I'm like, okay, I guess. But I kind of love her, and I really think that she would have lended a little bit more of that comedic flair if she was given a little bit more lines to say. A lot of the critics did pan the show. A lot of them didn't enjoy the show as well. And I think what's happening is that a lot of people, when they first heard the show was coming on, they actually immediately thought of, oh, it's like The Office, but in space. And like I said before, I'm a huge fan of The Office, but I don't think those two can be compared. Space Force and The Office are really two different things. Yes, they do have a group of quote-unquote characters that are different and trying to interact within a universe, but I feel like they're different. Comedy in a space theme actually will work. If you've ever seen Seth MacFarlane's The Orville, The Orville is hilarious. I love The Orville. And unfortunately, I don't think Space Force did a good job. Overall, it didn't really grab me as much as I was expecting it to. So now, of course, on the flip side, I've heard a lot of my friends who have actually watched it really enjoyed the show, and they really loved it. They thought it was really funny. So pretty much subjective, right? Every show will talk to or speak to somebody differently based on your own perception of the world, even based on how the fact that you just react to things in general. So I think Netflix is a great platform. They have quite a few different offerings on there, and they've come up with really, really good shows and movies that I love. Stranger Things, huge fan. I'm an 80s person, so Stranger Things is great. Personally, I was hoping things would blow up more on the Space Force. I mean, it's a comedy. Come on, we need some explosions. We need something happening. We need, I don't know. If it's space, the sky's the limit. No pun intended. But if there is a second season, hopefully the writing will improve and its feet a little bit better. I know sometimes shows take 1-2 seasons to kind of get into the pacing a little bit better. So go ahead and comment below your thoughts on the show. I would love to have a discussion on what you think is good, what you think is bad, whether you love the overall show, whether you absolutely hated it. I guess I can absolutely say I absolutely hated it. No, I don't want to say that. Like I said, there's certain good parts, but overall, it's not a show that I would want to rewatch like the first season over again and rave and be like, oh my god, this show's amazing. So, and if you enjoyed this, go hit that like button. That helps me a lot. And as I always say, until next time, my name is Chani here at the Launch Crew, and signing out.